Hello, everyone. Welcome to FinanceOlogy 101. Class is now in session. The information provided during this podcast is just that, information. You will need to do further research to address your specific situation. Enjoy the session. Hello, everyone. I'm Robin, and my husband is Elroy, and welcome to Gifted Generation Presents FinanceOlogy 101. The title for this session is Couples Get Your Money Right.
All right.
I would like to take this time to welcome founder and CEO of OG Coaching LLC, Olaunda Green. Welcome, Olaunda.
Thank you, Elroy and Robin, for having me.
It's a
Oh,
pleasure.
you're
Our pleasure.
welcome.
Our
Welcome.
pleasure. Our pleasure.
So tell the listeners all about yourself.
Okay, well, first of all, again, thank you so much for having me on FinanceOlogy 101. I'm so excited to be talking about money and finances and relationships on tonight. As Robin stated, my name is Olaunda Green, affectionately known as the OG. I am the founder and CEO of OG Coaching LLC. I am a public speaker, a marriage coach, a minister, and the author of Love Is Not Enough. So I published my first book on last year. I launched my book. So really excited about that. I'm also a relationship strategist. And what that means is I provide pre-marriage coaching to dating, engaged, and newly married couples to help them leverage their unique differences for optimal relationship satisfaction. I have my master's in counseling with a concentration in life coaching. And I'm also a certified Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts SYMBIS assessment facilitator. Me and my husband will actually celebrate 16 years of marriage on next month. Whoop, whoop.
Ooh,
And
congratulations.
thank you. And we have a 10-year-old daughter.
All right. That's incredible. So I read your book, Love Is Not Enough, and it is a great book. And
Thank you.
I love the cover because you got the referee shirt on. so even if I couldn't read, that picture tells a lot about the book. You are the mediator and when it comes to relationships. So am I
Yes.
saying that about right? When it comes to how you're coaching and what you're doing, right?
Yes, I like to think of myself as that referee, calling those plays. Sometimes I'm in meetings with couples and I'm like, wait a minute, hold on, flag on the play. Did you hear that? Did you see that? Did you hear what she said? Did you hear what he said? And so it's likened to a referee and a coach kind of, but I'm really that person on the sidelines, holding couples accountable and helping you with your next play.
Great. And I know people they can actually click on your website and they can get a session from you and also purchase your book.
Absolutely.
So I know you have some other things going on. You're on the podcast tonight. You got some more news that you might want to share with us that's coming up on this Wednesday.
Yes. On this Wednesday, February the 10th, during the 10 a.m. hour, I am going to be the featured guest on Working Mom Wednesday with Melissa Wade on the Light 103.9 FM. So for all of you out there listening, make sure that you join in, tune your radio station to 103.9, the Light FM on this Wednesday, February the 10th during the 10 a.m. hour. We're going to have two segments. I believe the first one is going to be somewhere near 10:15-ish, and then we'll talk for a little bit, and then they'll go to radio commercial and some music, and then we'll come back in with another segment later on around like 10:45. But if you listen during the 10 a.m. hour from 10 to 11, you won't miss it. And we're going to be talking about love and relationships for Love Month.
Wow, that's exciting. You're doing things. You're doing big things.
Thank you.
So you have a question? Let's get started.
Okay.
I'm going to jump right into a question.
Okay.
How do you address the impact that finances have on a relationship in your coaching?
Okay, so one of the first steps as a relationship strategist when someone comes to me for pre-marriage coaching, so they're in that dating, engaged, or even newly married stage, like I say, like 3 years or less, when they come to me, one of the first things that I have couples do is go through the Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts. It's called SYMBIS assessment. And this particular assessment is the first step in the coaching process. And I have found it to be the most practical, relevant, robust marriage tool that I've ever seen. I've looked for different tools and different things to use in my coaching. And what I've realized is that if without some type of assessment or some type of tool, people don't self-report very well. If you sit down and just start asking them questions, and then they either hold back out of fear of telling you the whole picture, or maybe it's just hard to really put everything that's going on into words. So this particular assessment generates a 15-page report that helps couples get to know each other better and explore a full range of issues. So I send this link to the couples. They take it separately. It takes about 30 minutes. It's multiple choice questions. And once they have both completed the assessment, it gets sent to me. And then I have this 15-page report that scores the couple side by side on so many different things. It's broken down into 4 different sections. So it talks about your marriage mindset. It talks about your well-being, which is like the readiness of your marriage, and it highlights potential issues. It talks about context, and these are the things that surround your relationship. And then it talks about dynamics, which are your unique personalities and how you will leverage those together. So within the context part, this is where we get into finances. And so through this, you realize that your financial skills, your attitude towards money, and even your history with how you use money makes up an important part of your context that you bring into your marriage around finances. And so having healthy money talk will help curtail countless currency issues or conflicts later on. So in this assessment, when they take it, it provides like this money matrix, and it grades them on 4 different things: on their money style, on their budgeting skills, on their financial fears, and on their debts. And so with their money style, it will, based on how they answer the questions, the multiple choice questions, it's going to tell me whether or not they are a saver or a spender. With their budgeting style, it's going to tell me whether or not they have a budget, and if they do have one, do they use it religiously, or do they just start one, or no, I don't even have a budget. Then with the financial fears, it goes into detail, and it identifies whether or not they are afraid of, a lack of influence over their money, having a lack of security, which means not having, enough money in their relationship, or there being a lack of respect towards money. And that might be, the fact that whoever they're with, maybe they have seen them disrespect money, just spend money frivolously. And so they're afraid of that. And then the last one for financial fears is around not realizing dreams. So we know in a relationship, if you get with someone, it's very important that you as a couple, that you're able to actualize dreams together, right? You are with someone who's going to help you realize your dreams and meet those dreams. So it also scores you on that too. And lastly, in this matrix, it scores you on how much debt you have. So the person ends up getting put into a category of reporting a significant amount of debt or having no financial debt. So that's kind of the tool that I use to start those money conversations in coaching.
That is incredible. I mean, you covered everything. And just imagine if we all had that assessment before we got married.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the thing, when I look back at this now, I'm like, the average person probably does not go quite that deep in their pre-marriage coaching, whether you get coaching or whether you get counseling. I do coaching. But whether you get marriage coaching or marriage counseling, it's very important to talk about all of these topics, not just, what are some of the ones that we all know, communication, make sure you can trust your spouse, make sure they love, all that stuff, but really getting practical in relationships and thinking about, okay, how are we going to be day to day? Could you imagine two people getting together and one person just like swipes credit cards all the time, and then the other person is an avid saver? Like, how that would impact their relationship?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a fight right there.
That's a fight right there in and of
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Because you know how when you new in a relationship, oh, I love him, oh, I love her.
Oh,
You ain't even
yes.
thinking about money. You ain't thinking about
Right.
nothing but just love. And I'm
That's
like,
right.
you need to get over that love and start asking some real questions.
That's right. That's right. You need to make sure that your day to day, most of the time in dating relationships, we don't tend to look at the day to day because, I don't know if you and Errol have ever heard this, but many people say that in the dating relationship, we send our representative. It's not really
Yes.
us. We
Yes.
send
Yes.
the
Yes.
best representation of us, right? And we
Right.
hold out to show the real us once it's too late. Like once you say I do, the marriage license is signed, and that's when that person start cutting the fool. You're like, wait a minute. I didn't sign up for this.
So what you saying, Robert may not have married me?
Listen, I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
I did warn her though. I did warn her. In your book, you said when he tells you something, you need to believe it. So I did warn her. I was a little crazy.
Okay. Well, as long as she had a disclaimer and then she could make her decisions on her own, that's what's important, right? So
That's right.
I think everybody, to a certain extent, I mean, in all honesty, you're not going to like show everything, you're going to be just a little bit reserved to a certain extent. And then I think once you really commit into that relationship, then people tend to show their true colors. So that's why I tell couples, if you having all these issues in a dating relationship, like if y'all can't get along and you're seeing all these issues and y'all ain't been dating but for 6 months, then you need to like multiply that by 10 and know that when you get married, it's going to be intensified all the more, right? So you need to take the time, don't rush, and take this assessment. And then from the assessment, so this is like the pre-marriage booster session. So this is like a pre-marriage session. It's a 2-hour intense session with me. So it's like a marriage boot camp on steroids. Kind of, they got all this information coming to them because I'm unpacking this 15-page report, and it's grading them on all these different things, on roles, expectations, finances, sex, their fears, how they were raised compared to how you were raised. I mean, it's so many different things, but it's so rich. And then part of my work, pre-work before the session, is taking that report and going through it with a fine-tooth comb, and I make my recommendations for the couple. So once we meet, and right now all of our sessions are virtual, so we've been doing Zoom, and that's been actually working out really, really great. We go through it. I share my screen with them. I make sure I send copies to them to their email. They have it. We go through the assessment page by page. They can ask questions. I give them, suggestions. And then at the very end, I have them to write notes. And I say, okay, these are the things in my professional experience that I recommend that you go back and you work on. And then from there, we build out the remaining pre-marriage sessions. That's how it goes.
Wow. Elra and I sometimes watch those dating shows they have on TV, and they are so unrealistic because everyone keeps saying, y'all not asking about the FICO score, y'all not asking about the money, y'all not. We be laughing because they are all surface stuff and no one gets down to the nitty gritty.
Right.
Like,
Right.
how's
Do you
your
have
money?
a job? Do you have a
Yep.
job?
See?
Do you
She said
own
what
your
I said.
house? Do you have a job? Do you own your house? It was one that I was watching, Married at First Sight, and when they came back after the wedding, the guy was living with his grandma. So they had to get, normally what they do is they come back after the wedding is over, after they get done with the honeymoon, and the show puts them up in a mutual space for 8 weeks until decision day. And so, but normally they each couple visits like their residence, and and that gives their newly married, the new spouse, a chance to look around and kind of see their stuff, see how they live, whatever, even though they're going to be going to this new mutual space for the 8 weeks. And when they pulled up, this poor girl went to the boy's grandma's house, and I was like, now see, I might have a problem with that. Like, okay, his grandma had left some food out on the stove for them.
She feeding them too, huh?
I was like, okay, but they doing good. I watched the update the other day, but I love watching stuff like that because just analyzing relationships and all of the dimensions of relationships, and particularly when you're talking about finances and that being such a building block of a relationship, like the success of your relationship is going to be based upon the financial power that you have, to attain wealth, so either you having a job, or maybe you have a job, but is it the right job? What are the hours of your job? Are we going to be able to make our relationship work? Because, now you off working a month at a time, way off somewhere, and leaving me by myself, all of that stuff. Those are things that people generally don't delve into. They don't go deep.
Yeah, that's kind of hard to broker that conversation, don't you think? And that's
it is.
Saying a lot of times that's what we feel. Now, me, I'm asking, but Robin tell you, I told Robin everything. I did. She tell you.
Now, when y'all got, were y'all both in the military? Whenever y'all met,
she was in. She was. Well, we met when we was in the military. And I sung too. I sound real good. And then I got out.
Oh my God!
I heard her say, "Oh my God!"
I have never heard you sing before.
You don't want to hear me sing. That's why I'm just talking.
Okay.
But she stayed in, and I got out, and then we ended up crossing paths again. And from there, 30 something years later, we're still together.
Wow, that's awesome. That is awesome. That's awesome.
So my question is, okay, so you have a couple that are so far at the opposite end of the spectrum when it comes to how they were raised with money, how they see money.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get them through your coaching to meet in that middle, to have common ground? Do they have assignments, or what do you do? How do you help them with that?
So one of the tools so first of all, once they do the assessment and we kind of go through this money matrix, lots of times when they see, on paper, they see their name, and under one person's name, it says saver, and the other person's name, it says spender. And then they see, so it's like, even though they may have been somewhat aware of this or may have had some conversation, it's nothing like seeing it on paper. Like the report can't lie, right? You self-reported these things. So it's right there in front of you. So in that, sometimes before I even start going down that path of talking about, okay, how are we going to make this align? Giving them some pointers. Lots of times they'll start talking and they'll be like, maybe the female is like, well, mine says that I don't have a budget, but you remember I did. So they're talking to each other and I'm listening. And then she might say to the guy, but you remember you was talking about a budget, but I'm willing to do a budget. It's almost like, by seeing that, like they want to get it right. Like I have not had a couple yet that was that far, apart, polar opposites, that it didn't automatically like they ended up talking it out in session. And so I just encourage them. Sometimes I just tell them, listen, this is the thing. Every household is different, right? So
Right.
you need to figure out what works well for your household, and you need to appoint a financial manager of your household. And I explained to them what that means, because sometimes in relationships, money can be one of the harder things to compromise on, because think about it. Whenever you're coming into a relationship, both people have their own autonomy, right? Especially
Right.
the longer you've been living on your own and you've had a chance to accumulate more things, it's really hard for those folks. It's not quite as hard for people who are really young, kind of coming almost straight out of their parents' house, but think about that 30-some-year-old that's, college grad and had plenty of years to attain wealth. They got their own house, car, savings account, everything. And then now you getting married and you joining your life with somebody. And whenever you join, the Bible says that two becomes one, right? So you lose some of that autonomy, some of that independence, because now you are joining your two lives together. You're having to come into agreement on everything. So money tends to be a biggie, because that's one of the few things that people feel like they still have control over, because you can't come to my job with me, right? I do my own job. So I earn my own money. So then I think that's why people get funny with money, because when they have a hard time, compromising on other stuff, and they really have to come to a compromise, something as simple as, okay, when you were single, you could stay out all night. You didn't have to check in with nobody. You didn't have to be courteous. You didn't have to call nobody. You do whatever you want to. Now you get married. You can't just be hanging out all night. You have to communicate. Let somebody know where you at, what's going on, check with their schedule, whatever. So anyway, get back to what I was saying. So then when couples really look at it, then they're like, wait a minute, they become possessive of the money, because that's one of the few things that I got control of, because I go to this job, I earn this salary. You ain't gonna tell me how I'm gonna spend this, right? So what I try to do is take some of that, especially for the females, because I'll be laughing. Some females, they have a lot of bass in their voice. Like, you ain't gonna tell me what I'm about to do about my money. Like, I'm gonna do, So it's like, okay, bring that down about 10 notches. Like, it's okay. But it's a way, I feel like it is you trying to usurp that authority, like over one of the few things that you feel like you still have control over. So it's really control. So then when you in a coaching session, if that comes about, when you explain that, okay, if we work together and join our money together, instead of doing everything separate, instead of playing these games where, I don't know what you make, you hiding your money, you got 3 and 4 accounts that I don't have access to, I don't know where they are, I don't know what you got in there. You're only shooting yourself in the foot, because we can't truly actualize our dreams without putting this money together, without coming up with a plan. So going back to your question and what I was saying about being a financial manager, who's going to be the leader, couples, I really encourage them and push them to assign that to somebody. And it does not have to be a gender specific. It don't have to be the man, because it could be the female that's really good in finances. So this ain't got nothing to do with, okay, I'm going to be telling you what. No, this is just the person that's going to make sure the bills get paid, make sure that it go in the right account, and just oversee. That doesn't mean the other person can't still look at the account and do that, but you need somebody to be responsible for that. So we start there and kind of just talk about who's best with money, who's paying, and it really always kind of works out. It's always, I have never had 2 people that were equally like, well, no, I'm great with money. Well, no, I'm great with money. Well, no, it's always balancing. Wow. One person is always kind of a little slack, like, well, yeah, you are better. Yeah, wow, I'll be collecting them late fees. You right. You might need to be the one to do, so it always works out. But I really like to start there and get them thinking. So I really think that assessment and them looking at it and seeing it on paper, it kind of does the work for me. But if for some reason it doesn't, then one of the other things that it goes into is called money talks. And basically, to minimize friction over finances, it basically talks about how you want to keep communication channels clear. And so it gives a series of these statements. And so it asks them to complete these sentences. And sometimes we do them in session, but if we spend a whole lot of time, I think they need, more time doing it. I might assign this. So like some of the money talk sentences that they need to complete is like, in my home growing up, money was, and then they fill that in. When I think about our financial future, ... So then they fill that in. What you may not know about money and me is ...
Okay.
So those are like exercises that I would give to them if I feel like if we don't get it, worked out in session. I would give them that as like an exercise. And sometimes when people start doing that and then they fill that in, then they're like, oh, well, the reason why I'm like this is because I got this from my mom, or I got this from my dad, or I saw this in the household, growing up, and I've just carried that on into my adulthood. Sometimes if people grew up with a lack of finances, that makes them hold on, right? They can be really, because they are afraid, if they were ever homeless or something, then it makes them afraid, and then they don't want to share. So they're like, no, you're not gonna be in charge of my finance. I'm gonna always have to look out for me. And that is an area that we have to work on, of trust, that they have a hard time trusting somebody, but it comes from something in their childhood.
Yeah, that's like with me, because I always saw my mom. She worked hard as a single mom, so I never try to, ask for a lot or require a lot, because I knew she was out working hard for us. And so that has carried over in my adulthood, that, Roy be wanting to do this and do that. And I'd be like, no, because when we were dating, I wouldn't even allow him to buy stuff for me, because I was like, that credit card, that bill is coming.
Right,
so
right.
I might have on this new outfit, but guess what? That bill is coming in the mail. And so at an early age, I understood that the money wasn't just because it was a credit card, the money wasn't coming out the sky.
Right,
That
right.
He was going to get that bill later, and he was already working so hard. And I still think that way, that I don't want to add to what's already you're dealing with.
Right.
And it all came from my upbringing.
She's exactly right. Because a lot of times, if I'm planning a trip for us, I be like, if I tell her this price, she'd be like, no, we ain't doing it. But I always laugh because I have already saved for that. I guess in 10 years or something, she's still saying that's too much. But now she's learning, okay, you playing for it, so ignorance is bliss.
Okay.
So a lot of times, I like, let's just show up and don't ask me for the price, honey, because I think you enjoy it better.
Right. So that is a great example. So Robin, you see that how you grew up directly affects that. Now imagine on the flip side of that, had you grown up and you saw your mom being very frivolous with money, right? And just spending. And let's say you never saw the consequence of that. It's one thing if you saw the consequence, then that might, curtail that some in adulthood. But many times people see a particular spending habit and the parents have been able to shield the child from that. So the child didn't know that rent was late. Or the child didn't know they was about to be put out on the street. So they just saw a very unhealthy relationship with money growing up. And then it just spills over into adulthood. They don't have any budget. They just swipe. They are used to paying late fees and like, oh, it'll work out. And having debt is just comfortable for them because that's how they've always been. So it could be either end of the spectrum.
Wow.
Because
Go ahead, babe.
Go ahead. Oh, I had a coworker that, like you said, when she got married later in life, and she would talk to me and tell me I got my bills and he got his bills, and he don't know how much I make and I don't know how much he make. And I'm looking at her like, this don't even make sense. Y'all live in the same house. And how it's like y'all roommates or something.
Right.
How can it be your husband? and y'all not talking about this, and it's like y'all living separate lives.
Right.
And it seems so strange to me that that's how they were operating.
Well, let me ask you this question now. You were talking about kids and stuff. A lot of times you're doing coaching, and then how, I mean, when it comes to kids, and you said something very important, like, the kids didn't know the rent was late. In your coaching, do that come up a lot as far as a blended family, somebody with the kids, and how do a relationship impact that when it comes to finances and trying to understand another person before yourself is completed?
I haven't had a lot of blended families, and I think it's because most of my it's been some. I would say maybe 20% of the couples that I've had.
That's a lot, though.
We're going to be blending. Maybe one person had a child from a previous relationship, but the majority, 80%, they're not blending family. They're because remember, I'm working primarily with people who are dating and engaged. So for the majority of them, it's their first marriage, their first, so a lot of them aren't doing that. And then I think that it's different, even if there's two single people that's never been married, and let's say one person has a child, right? But they've never been married to that child's mother or father, versus a couple where the person has been married before, and out of the marriage came a child. Then that adds another dynamic, because what happens is I feel like the couple that have never been married before, even though it might be a child involved, they are still more open to hearing how I'm saying you need to do this, because they haven't been there before. And that's what I would say the majority of those kids coming over, that's a situation. I've had less with, I have some, but that's definitely not the norm. It's normally two single people with no kids, or two single people who've never been married and one of them might have a child. But I would say in the instances where there have been blending and one or both partners have been married before, we end up having to do a little bit more in sessions to make sure that they are not bringing preconceived notions or ideas of how they did it before, unless it was a good idea that can be used as a suggestion. But if they're bringing in negative things, let's say there's a female and her previous spouse, he was really, really bad with money, and now this is impacting her ability to be open with money with the new person, then we have to break down those walls, because you don't want the next person to pay for the past of the other person, so as far as the kids, I think it all depends on, it's really relative to the age of the children. Because when they're really, really little, then it's not quite as bad. But when you got these blended families and they're bringing in teenagers, and we know in the teen years tend to be more expensive years, right? You pass being able to make somebody happy with a baby doll for Christmas. This mug want iPhones and tablets and cars and all kinds, once they get in those teenage years. So then if you haven't had a good sound conversation about money and about spending, and even how much we spend on the children, and do the children earn allowances, or do we just give them whatever they want? Those are questions that have to be asked too. And so that kind of comes up, and the good thing about the assessment is you answer all these questions. So it's going to ask you if you've been married before. It's going to ask you if you have any children, and then based off of your response, it then gives you follow-up questions. So I will know in the report if there are children and which one. I'll know in the report if they've been married before, and then it gives extra questions to assess whether or not you on rebound, whether or not issues of your previous relationship is impacting the current relationship. It's a very smart assessment. So depending on how you answer certain questions, it will give you additional questions, which will help me in session.
Okay. Learn behavior kind of survey. Okay. All right. I like that.
So, Olaunda, do you have any couples that are of the younger generation that come in?
Absolutely.
Okay, so what's their perspective on marriage and finances? Because I'm quite sure their perspective is totally different from ours.
But see, and it depends, and you're right. I'm glad you said that about that age range, because that does make a difference, right? So it depends on if they are straight out of college, so a lot of them might be in their first jobs. I had a couple, and they were young. Both of them had graduated college, and the female was like very entrepreneurial. Like she had a great corporate job, but then she had her dream and she wanted to pursue that. And so she left the corporate job and she started pursuing her dream, which was going really, really well. I mean, she was making her money and holding her own and everything. And the guy, he chose to still work his corporate job. And I think that with her, I think she wanted him to have that grind. So sometimes with young people, they can have so many dreams that they're, it's like it's become popular for everybody to have a business on the side, you know what I'm saying, with doing something. And I have to be really careful when I talk to people, when I talk to couples, because everybody's not meant to be an entrepreneur. Like, let's just be clear across the board.
Yeah.
Like, everybody don't have that. Some people, they like the idea of going to college, getting their degree, figuring out what career they want to get in, and their interest is climbing the corporate ladder. Now, would it behoove you to have something else going on the side, to have, other streams of income? Of course, but you can't chart that path of what that looks like for everybody. They have to decide that everybody ain't gonna want to work their full-time job and then come home and grind it out for another 5 hours in the evening. Everybody, they don't have that makeup, and that's okay. So I think with couples, the younger generation like that, because they are so like, okay, we got to get this money, I got to make this money. Sometimes they can almost get off. It's like they can't see the forest for the trees, so to speak. And so you have to kind of bring them back into reality. Like, okay, let's think about this. Okay, then that's when, for some of them, you really got to think about these 5-year goals, 10-year goals, like, okay, to give them, or even a year goal, to give them something more attainable that they can work toward, because they're just thinking about right now. Like, I got to get this money. And then if you're not on my same level, if you're not trying to grind like I'm grinding, then something wrong with you, and that's not necessarily true. It is, you want the person that you're with, of course, to bring something to the table and be stable in that, because they can't bring you to something that they're not stable in, right? So that, and they have to have, some dreams, and, but if it is not their dream to own their own company, that is okay. That's the point that I have to get across to some of the younger ones.
Wow. And you're so right, because a lot of young people, they jump from job to job to job to job.
Yeah.
And they're
just trying to get the money.
Loyalty.
They have no loyalty. They're just trying to get the money. They're just trying to grind. So they and they don't realize the impact of that on their resume. You an employer looking at your resume, and you just all about the grind, because you'll jump a job for extra $2,000 extra at the end of the year. And you got to really get them to ground themselves, because they'll just be looking at the money, like the grind, like I got to get this money. And they're not thinking long term, like, wait a minute, maybe I need to stay here for a minute, build some character in this job. Let me not just hop jobs because I can. And because it's not going to look good on a resume when an employer see in 5 years you done had 8 jobs. Like, you haven't stayed on nothing long enough. You haven't shown any longevity You know what I'm saying? And they don't necessarily see that because they looking at, oh, I'm trying to make this money. I'm trying, but that's not, you slow and steady wins the race. Like you got to be practical and you got to be strategic about how you do stuff, not just jumping jobs and, making unwise decisions.
Right.
Wow. This has been really eye-opening. Um, so let's see. I'm gonna do a summation of some of the things that you said, and if I'm missing anything or you want to add something, feel free to
Okay.
jump in, Olaunda.
Okay.
I think first couples should be open and honest about money. They
Mm-hmm.
should have common ground. It's not a struggle. It's not a tug of war.
Mm-hmm.
They should have a clear communication channel,
Mm-hmm.
and they need to decide who has the best skills to manage the money.
Mm-hmm.
Is there
Mm-hmm.
anything else that?
Yeah, and be honest about what your financial fears are. Like I was saying earlier about that lack of
Yeah.
influence over
Yeah.
your money, the
Yeah.
lack of security, the lack of respect of money, and then your fear of not being able to realize dreams. Because sometimes if you do have a spouse or a mate, you're dating, and they are spending, they don't hear you saying, "Hey, you might want to cut that down." But if you tell them the reason why I don't agree with how you swipe cards and how you spend money frivolously is because I fear us not being able to realize our dreams together. I
Wow.
fear
Wow.
the fact that there's not going to be security, that we're going to be still sitting up here working at 70 years old because we have not put money aside while we were younger and started building our savings. Sometimes people, they don't want to be told what to do, but if they can understand why you're saying it, then it's like, oh, okay. It's not just coming and falling on deaf ears like you just trying to make their life miserable because you don't want them to have. It's not that.
Right.
We just have to figure out a practical way in how we can get some of the things that we want while at the same time saving for tomorrow.
Right.
Well,
Right. Well,
well,
this has been an awesome session. Awesome
Thank you. I've enjoyed
session.
it. Yes.
Yes. So, Olaunda, do you want to share all of your social media platforms and anything you want to mention about your book and how they can get it?
Sure. So if you are interested in either booking a coaching session with me or purchasing my book, you can go to my website, which is www.coachog.com. That's COACHOG.com. And when you go to my website, one of the first things that you'll see a pop-up, and it's going to ask you to join the OG's email listing. And I try to email folks on that list of upcoming things. If I have any major things going on, trying to keep that list abreast of what's happening with me. And then also there'll be some tabs up at the top on the website, on the front page, and you can click those. And if you scroll down to work with me, that's where you can book your session. My calendar stays up to date there. So it already shows my availability. You can see the different packages that I have and go ahead and schedule your session today. And there on my homepage, you will see where you can purchase Love Is Not Enough. And so whether you are single, engaged, or dating, Love Is Not Enough will equip you with the components needed for a successful, well-balanced, harmonious relationship. So it's really me talking about my love story with my husband, and then kind of sharing our journey and some of the mistakes that we made because we did not have adequate pre-marriage coaching. And so it's really perfect for, like I said, single, engaged, dating, or married. But if you are dating, or even if you're single and you're not in a relationship yet, and you really want to know, okay, what do I need to be doing right now? What should I be looking for if you're female, you're waiting for your husband to find you, whatever. What should I be doing? Then this book is going to be good, because at the end of each chapter, we provide reflection questions. And so you can reflect on what you read, you can answer the questions, and it has note pages throughout the book. So it's really a book and a workbook, so to speak.
Well, I like your website. I see you do discovery calls, strategy session calls, accountability calls. So you really break it down in different things. Pre-marriage booster package. I love what I'm seeing here because I got
Thank
some
you.
people I know that my nephews and nieces. They need to be. Can I pay for that package for them? And you just contact them.
Sure, go ahead. But it's gonna make you book the date though. When you click on it, it's gonna pull up my calendar and it's gonna make you book the date. So you might want to call them first before you got to coordinate. But if you want to follow me on Facebook, you can go to OG Coaching LLC. You can search that, or on Instagram, it's just my name, Olaunda Green, OLAUNDAGREEN.
Okay.
And I will make sure I post all your social media platforms on the description for the podcast. So when people go out and find this one, they'll see all your information.
Sounds
Oh,
great.
and mention again your special event on Wednesday.
Yes, everybody, please tune in on Wednesday morning. I will be a featured
Yes.
guest on Working Mom Wednesday with Melissa Wade on the Light 103.9 FM at 10 a.m. during the 10 a.m. segment. So if you listen between 10 and 11, you won't miss it. It's going to be 2 different short segments. I think the first one is going to start closer to like 10:13, 10:15, something like that. And then they go to commercial, play some music, and then come back and we'll do the second segment around like 10:45. So if you listen between 10 and 11, you won't miss it. But the Light 103.9 FM for Working Mom Wednesday. So this Wednesday, February 10th.
Yeah, and there's a comment in the chat. It says thoroughly enjoyed this. So so really enjoyed your time here with us, and we do want to say thank you for just taking time out to come on and just spread your joy and your wisdom and your knowledge, because it can go a long way to successful marriage and dating games. If you can get this early in life, you will be successful for a long time. So.
That's right.
It'll still be a struggle, but it'll be less struggle. Be less struggle.
Right.
Right. It's always going to be, conflict is inevitable, right? But when we have the right tools in our toolbox, it's just like you can't go outside and fix something in your garage. You have tools. You don't go out there and pull an old board out to fix something. You have specific tools. You got that specific screwdriver. You got the specific thing. You got different heads, so you have to have the right tools. So that's what I'm about with my coaches, my coaching session, trying to give couples the right tools to put in their relationship toolbox so that when that conflict hits, they can pull out the right tool and use it.
Well, you're talking a man's language. You're talking about tools. That we understand.
You understand that?
Okay. Yeah. Oh, tools. Oh. Okay. I need a flathead and I need, okay.
I need a wrench. I need a hammer.
Yeah, there you go. So that we can relate to. You woke up the whole, people don't listen right now. We woke up.
Okay. Well, I'm glad. I'm really, really glad. Yeah. But make sure you tune in on Wednesday, guys, because I'm going to be featuring, I'm going to be giving my relationship satisfaction theory. And this is going to be a first mention. I've never taught it. This is something I came up with that I have coined, and I'm going to explain what that means, the relationship satisfaction theory, on Wednesday. So tune in.
Wow. Okay.
Well,
definitely do that.
Yeah,
so, Edward, before we close out, you want to give our gifted generation social media platform?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, honey. My lovely wife. She just lets me take care of her at all costs. I love her to death. She is a doll to me. Robin knows how I feel about her. I'm always trying to make sure she has what she needs, because she's right. She doesn't ask for much. I'm like, okay, low maintenance, but still maintenance.
And that makes you want to do even more, right?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Right.
Well, one thing I can say about Robin is right here. She is a great ego booster. And what I mean by that, she always says, as long as I know you have breath in your body, she says, I never worry about our finances.
Ah, that's good.
And that goes a long way. Like,
that does go a long way.
Get out of bed, and I'm going to work today.
That's right. That's good. I like that.
Yeah. So, all right, you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/giftedgen LLC. You can always find us on Instagram, just gift.gen. And on YouTube, just search Gifted Generations LLC. And of course, our website. And we actually have a blog on our website that we're talking about different conversations like this one right here. You can always start a blog and we can go back and forth. It's giftedgenerations-llc.com. And as Robin always say, don't forget
the
that
dash.
dash.
Because you're going to be on the wrong website if you do.
Yes. I'm trying to tell you. That is true. Like, Robin, what y'all doing out there? That ain't us.
Wrong one. I don't know who them gifted generation folks is.
Well, once again, Olaunda, thank you so much. We truly appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a blast talking to you guys. I love you guys so much. So thank you again for entrusting me and believing in me enough to have me on your show. So I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. And we love you and your baby girl, Simone, and your husband, Bruce. We love you guys, too.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. We're signing off. Have a good night, everyone. All right. Have a good one.
All right.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Well, thank you for tuning in to our podcast, FinanceOlogy 101. I hope you enjoyed this session and the information provided will assist you on your financial journey. Until next time, be financially engaged.